My name is Clara Jensen, and at 32, I've built a life I'm proud of. I'm a data analyst in Austin, Texas, climbing the ranks at a top tech firm and earning more than I ever dreamed. It's a far cry from my childhood, when my world fell apart at 9. My mom walked out on my dad and me after their divorce, leaving us to scrape by. I worked hard, fought for every opportunity, and thought I'd left that pain behind. But then one autumn evening, everything changed. A knock at my apartment door brought my past crashing back. My mom had somehow found out how much I earn, and she showed up with my spoiled half-brother, demanding I hand over a fortune. Their words hit like a punch. Bold, shameless, dripping with entitlement. It wasn't just about money. It was a betrayal that cut deep. How far would they go to get what they wanted? And what secrets were they hiding? I was about to find out, and it would test everything I thought I knew about family. If you've ever faced a family betrayal, drop a comment below and share your story. It means a lot to hear from you. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more real-life drama. I never thought my mom would find me because of the money I make. Growing up in Iowa, my life changed forever at 9 years old. My mom, Margaret Lowe, walked out on my dad, Peter Jensen, and me after their marriage fell apart. She'd grown distant, always distracted, until one evening she grabbed a suitcase and left without a word. Dad later told me she'd fallen for another man, someone who promised her a better future. The divorce was quick, leaving us with a small house and a mountain of bills. Mom didn't just leave. She vanished, starting a new life across the state. Years later, I learned she had my half-brother, Ethan Lowe, with her new husband. She never called, never visited, only sent a yearly birthday card with a few cold words that stung more than they comforted. Dad poured everything into keeping us afloat. He ran a small diner, a greasy spoon serving breakfast and burgers, working from dawn to midnight. He'd flip pancakes, scrub counters, and ring up customers, his hands rough from endless hours. The diner barely broke even. Some days he brought home less than $50 after expenses. Rent was always late, and the fridge was often empty. Dad hid his worry, but I saw it in his slumped shoulders, the way he'd sigh over unpaid bills. He'd come home exhausted, yet still made time to ask about my day. His voice warm despite the strain. At 13, I couldn't stand watching him struggle alone. I started babysitting for neighbors, staying up late to watch their kids while studying by flashlight. Soon I took on more, stocking shelves at a corner store, cleaning houses after school, even delivering newspapers before dawn. Every dollar I earned went to Dad for groceries or the electric bill. He'd argue, saying I should be a kid, not a breadwinner, but I insisted. It was my way of fighting back against the void Mom left. I'd hide my own exhaustion, pretending it was fine when my hands ached from scrubbing floors or my legs burned from biking miles with papers. School was my lifeline. I'd stay late for math club, poring over equations to drown out the hurt. Dad would sit with me at our worn kitchen table, helping with homework when he wasn't half asleep. He'd say I could do anything, that I was stronger than our circumstances. His words kept me going even when I doubted myself, but Mom's absence was a constant ache. I'd stare at her old photos, wondering why I wasn't enough for her to stay. Those questions carved a hole in me, one I buried under work and study. By high school, I learned to depend on myself. I saved every penny, studied harder, and vowed never to need anyone like I'd needed her. Dad was my anchor, but I knew he couldn't carry us forever. I had to build my own path, and I did, one grueling step at a time. Still, the weight of those early years never fully left me. I learned to stand on my own early, but the past still haunted me. By high school, I knew my way out was through education. I buried myself in studies, staying up late to master calculus and ace every exam. My guidance counselor saw my grit and pointed me towards scholarships. At 17, I won a full ride to a state university for data analytics, a field that clicked with my love for patterns and answers. That scholarship was my escape, a chance to rewrite my future. But even with tuition covered, I was on my own for everything else. Books, rent, meals. There was no cushion, just me and my determination. To survive, I worked multiple jobs. I waited tables at a campus diner, dodging spilled coffee while memorizing code snippets. Weekends, I was an office assistant at a small law firm, sorting files and answering calls. Late nights, I cleaned offices, wiping down desks until my arms burned. My schedule was relentless, up at 5 a.m., asleep past midnight. Always calculating how many hours I needed to cover next month's bills. Every dollar went to essentials, with a sliver tucked away for emergencies. I pushed through exhaustion, driven by a promise to myself. I wouldn't let my past define me. By the time I graduated, I was worn thin but proud. I landed my first job at a small startup in Dallas, earning just enough to get by. The long nights of studying, the endless shifts, it had all led to that moment. I finally felt free. Dad was my biggest cheerleader. He called every Sunday, bragging to anyone who would listen about his brilliant daughter in the city. His voice carried that same pride he had the day I left for college, even though I could still hear the weariness beneath it. But time was catching up with him. Years of hard labor and stress took their toll. His diner closed, the bills piled up, and he quietly began selling things to stay afloat. When he didn't tell me until months later, I was furious. But I understood. Pride runs deep in our family. When I got a promotion at work, my first call was to him. "Dad," I said, "you don't have to worry anymore." "I've got us now." He cried for the first time in years. We moved him to a better neighborhood, closer to me. He'd visit on weekends, bringing his famous blueberry muffins and old jokes. Life, for once, felt steady. The chaos of childhood was behind us. Then came the message, a Facebook notification. Someone named Margaret Lowe had sent a friend request. My hand froze over the mouse. After all these years she was reaching out, my pulse raced. Against my better judgment, I clicked accept. Her message arrived minutes later. "Hi, Clara. It's been so long. I'm sorry for everything. I'd love to talk sometime. Maybe we can start over?" I didn't respond. Not that day. Not that week. Dad deserved peace, not more heartbreak. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. I stalked her profile, new photos, a cozy house, smiling faces, a teenage boy, her son, Ethan Lowe, my half-brother, the life she chose instead of me. Months passed before she sent another message. "I heard you're doing really well. I'm proud of you." That one cut deeper than the first. Proud? She hadn't been there for a single exam, a single birthday, a single tear. And now she was proud? I typed a dozen replies, deleted them all. Finally, I sent one line. "It's too late for that." She didn't reply. Life moved on. Work consumed me, and Dad's health stabilized. I earned another promotion, started leading a small team, and finally allowed myself small luxuries. Brunch with coworkers, weekend trips, an apartment with sunlight. I thought I'd finally built a wall strong enough to keep the past out, until she showed up at my door. It was a quiet Sunday. I was meal prepping for the week when the buzzer rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I checked the peephole, I froze. There she was. Margaret, older, thinner, but unmistakable. Her hair had more gray than I remembered. Her eyes carried something between guilt and defiance. Beside her stood a young man, Ethan. I opened the door just enough to speak. "What are you doing here?" She gave a shaky smile. "Clara, please, I just wanted to see you. We were in town and I cut her off." "You were in town for 30 years? You just never cared to visit?" Ethan shifted awkwardly. "Hey, I'm Ethan," he said softly, extending a hand. I didn't take it. Margaret's face tightened. "We didn't come for a fight. Ethan's starting college and things have been difficult. I was hoping you could help. You're doing so well." There it was. The real reason? Money? I laughed bitterly. "You disappeared for decades, and now you show up asking for money?" Her eyes glistened. "I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. We're losing the house, Clara. Please, you have so much." "So much?" I snapped. "You have no idea what it took to get here." The silence that followed was suffocating. Ethan looked down, ashamed. Margaret reached out as if to touch my arm, but I stepped back. "Please," she whispered. "You're my daughter." "No," I said coldly. "You gave up that right when you walked away." And then I closed the door. I stood there, heart pounding, listening to their footsteps fade down the hall. My chest felt hollow. I wanted to cry, to scream, but instead I just sank onto the couch, numb. Was I cruel? Maybe. But after all those years of being invisible, I couldn't bring myself to care. The days after that encounter blurred together. I threw myself into work, hoping deadlines and meetings could drown out the ache in my chest. But every night, her face, older, fragile, desperate, haunted me. Dad noticed. He always did. "Something on your mind, kiddo?" he asked one evening over dinner. I hesitated. She came by. He set down his fork, his expression tightening. "Margaret?" I nodded. He let out a slow breath and leaned back. "What did she want?" "Money," I said flatly, his jaw clenched. After all she did? Unbelievable. We sat in silence for a long moment. Then he reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You don't owe her anything, Clara. Not a damn thing. I know, I said, but the truth was, part of me didn't believe it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every memory, the birthdays without her, the nights I'd cried myself to sleep, the way Dad used to stare at the empty chair at dinner. But I also remembered her laugh, her hugs, the warmth that used to exist before everything shattered. 1 week later, a letter arrived. No return address, but I knew the handwriting instantly. Clara, I'm sorry for showing up unannounced. I wasn't asking you to fix our problems. I just wanted to see you one last time. I've been sick for a while. I didn't want to leave this world without at least trying. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I needed you to know I never stopped loving you. Oh, my hands trembled. For a long time, I just stared at the paper. Sick? Was this guilt? Manipulation? Or was it the truth? I didn't tell Dad. I didn't want to reopen old wounds. Instead, I tucked the letter away and tried to ignore it. But I couldn't. Every line replayed in my mind. A month later, I got another message. This time, from Ethan. Hey, I know you don't owe us anything, but Mom's in the hospital. She keeps asking for you. I stared at the screen for a long time. My heart pounded. Every instinct told me to delete the message and walk away. But my fingers betrayed me. Which hospital? When I arrived, Ethan was waiting by the door. His eyes were red, his voice quiet. She's been asking for you. I followed him down the sterile hallway, the smell of disinfectant thick in the air. My stomach twisted with every step. When we reached her room, he paused. She's been getting worse. Just go easy on her, okay? I nodded and walked in. Margaret looked small in the bed, her skin pale, her breathing shallow. Tubes ran from her arms to machines that beeped steadily. When her eyes fluttered open and met mine, she smiled weakly. Clara, she whispered. I didn't know what to say. I just stood there frozen. You came, she said. I didn't think you would. I almost didn't, I admitted. She nodded slowly. You look so much like your father. I stayed silent. I'm sorry, she whispered again. Every day I thought about coming back. But shame is heavy. I wanted to stay angry. I wanted to remind her of every year she missed, every wound she caused. But looking at her, frail, fading, I couldn't. Tears blurred my vision. Why now? Because I wanted you to know, she said softly, that you were never the reason I left. I swallowed hard. Then why did you? Her eyes filled with tears. Because I didn't know how to stay. For the first time, I realized that maybe her choices hadn't been born from malice, but fear. It didn't excuse anything, but it explained something. We talked for hours. About nothing, about everything. About my childhood, her regrets, the years lost between us. She told me about Ethan, how she'd tried to be better the second time around. How she'd failed again, but kept trying. When it was time to leave, she reached out her trembling hand. I took it. I forgive you, I said quietly. She smiled faintly. Thank you. It was the last thing she ever heard. She passed away 2 days later. The funeral was small, almost intimate. A few distant relatives, some of her church friends, and Ethan. I stood near the back, unsure if I even belonged there. The pastor spoke softly about forgiveness, about finding peace. I tried to listen, but my thoughts were elsewhere, scattered through time. All I could see was the little girl version of me, waiting at the window for a mother who never came home. After the service, Ethan approached me. His voice cracked slightly when he spoke. She kept your letters, he said. I frowned. My what? He pulled a small bundle from his coat pocket, a stack of yellowed envelopes tied with a ribbon. My handwriting, letters I'd written as a child, ones I'd mailed to an address that always came back returned to sender. She never threw them away, Ethan said quietly. She moved a lot, but she always kept them. My breath caught. I took the bundle, feeling the weight of years pressed into paper. I didn't open them right away. I just held them. We stood there in silence for a long time. Finally, I said, She was lucky to have you. He shook his head. I think she wanted to be better because of you. Before leaving, he handed me a small photograph. The three of us. I was maybe 6 years old, sitting between them, smiling like the world was perfect. I didn't even remember that day. That night, I went home, sat on the floor, and finally opened the letters. The first one started with, Dear Mom, I got an A in math today. Dad says you'd be proud. Another said, I'm mad at you for not coming back. The last one ended with, I hope you're happy wherever you are. By the time I reached the end, I was crying. Not out of anger this time, but release. For years, I thought closure would come from revenge or distance. But it came from understanding. From realizing that pain doesn't erase love, and love doesn't excuse pain. The next morning, I visited Dad. I told him everything. The hospital, the letters, her final words. He sat in silence for a while before finally saying, You did the right thing, kiddo. Forgiveness isn't for them. It's for you, I smiled through tears. Yeah, I think I finally get that. We made coffee like we always did on Sundays. The air felt lighter somehow, like a storm had passed. That night before bed, I placed the photograph of me, Margaret, and Ethan on my shelf, not as a reminder of what I'd lost, but of what I'd survived. For the first time in my life, I felt whole.